Let's talk about employment contracts. Let's discuss it. What makes an employment contract important? The importance of the employment contract lies in its ability to create a comprehensive and legally enforceable agreement between employers and employees, establishing clarity on roles, responsibilities, rights, and obligations. This pivotal document not only outlines crucial employment terms, such as compensation and working conditions, but also serves as a vital legal safeguard, ensuring fairness and protection for both parties. A well-drafted employment contract is instrumental in fostering transparency, trust, and a positive working relationship while minimizing the potential for misunderstandings and disputes. Is it mandatory to have an employment contract? In many jurisdictions, employment contracts are not always required by law for every type of employment relationship. However, having a written employment contract is highly recommended for both employers and employees, as it helps to clarify the terms and conditions of the working relationship. While oral agreements and implied contracts can be legally binding, a written employment contract provides a clear and documented record of the agreed-upon terms, reducing the risk of misunderstandings or disputes. The employment contract holds paramount importance as it establishes a clear and legally binding agreement between an employer and an employee, ensuring mutual understanding of roles, responsibilities, rights, and obligations. This document not only provides a framework for essential employment terms such as compensation, working conditions, and termination procedures, but also serves as a crucial legal instrument that safeguards the interests of both parties. A well-crafted employment contract contributes to a transparent, fair, and harmonious employer-employee relationship, fostering a positive work environment and mitigating potential disputes. Let's continue with the reasons why an employment contract is important. 1. Clarity of terms. Roles and responsibilities clearly outlines the duties and responsibilities of the employee. Expectations sets expectations regarding work performance, conduct, and standards. 2. Legal protection. Rights and obligations defines the rights and obligations of both the employer and employee, providing legal protection for both parties. Termination conditions specifies conditions and procedures for termination, protecting both parties from unfair dismissal or resignation. 3. Terms and conditions of employment. Compensation clearly outlines salary, benefits, bonuses, and any other compensation-related details. Working hours defines working hours, breaks, and any overtime arrangements. Probationary period, if applicable, specifies the terms of any probationary period for new hires. 4. Confidentiality and non-disclosure protects sensitive information, includes clauses to protect confidential company information and trade secrets. Non-compete clauses may include restrictions on working for competitors for a specified period after employment ends. 5. Dispute resolution. Arbitration or mediation specifies the process for resolving disputes between the employer and the employee, often through arbitration or mediation before resorting to legal action. 6. Company policies and procedures. Reference to handbook often refers to the company handbook or policies, ensuring that employees are aware of and agree to adhere to organizational rules and procedures. 7. Duration and renewal. Fixed term or indefinite, clearly states whether the employment is for a fixed term or indefinite period, providing clarity on the nature of the employment relationship. 8. Compliance with labor laws. Legal requirements ensures compliance with local labor laws and regulations. Fair employment practices helps in promoting fair employment practices and preventing discrimination. 9. Protection of intellectual property. Ownership of work specifies the ownership of intellectual property created during the course of employment. 10. Communication and expectations. Mutual understanding facilitates open communication and a mutual understanding of expectations, fostering a positive employer-employee relationship. Having a well-drafted employment contract not only protects the interests of both parties but also contributes to a transparent and healthy working relationship. It provides a foundation for a positive workplace dynamic and helps prevent misunderstandings or disputes. Which types of employment contracts are utilized in the Philippines? In the Philippines, various types of employment contracts may be used, depending on the nature of the employment relationship and the specific terms agreed upon by the employer and employee. Common types of employment contracts in the Philippines include 1. Regular employment contract. This is the standard employment contract for employees engaged in regular or permanent positions. It outlines the terms and conditions of ongoing employment. 2. Fixed-term employment contract. This type of contract specifies a predetermined period of employment. It is often used for project-based work or temporary positions with a defined end date. 3. Project-based employment contract. Similar to a fixed-term contract, a project-based contract is used when an employee is hired for a specific project or task. The employment ends upon completion of the project. 4. Seasonal employment contract. Applied when an employee is hired for work that occurs during specific seasons. Common examples include agricultural work during planting or harvesting seasons. 5. Casual or probationary employment contract. For employees in a probationary period, typically the initial stage of employment where the employer assesses the employee's suitability for a permanent position. 6. Part-time employment contract. Used for employees working fewer hours than the standard full-time schedule. Part-time contracts specify the agreed-upon work hours and may include prorated benefits. 7. Job order or service contract, often used for individuals hired to perform specific services. It is common in government and public sector employment. 8. Agency-hired employment contract. In cases where employees are hired through an employment agency, there may be a contract between the agency and the employee, specifying terms and conditions. It's important to note that the Philippines has specific labor laws and regulations that govern employment contracts. The terms of employment, including wages, benefits, and working conditions, are subject to compliance with the labor standards set by the Department of Labor and Employment, DOL. Employers and employees should be familiar with these regulations to ensure that their contracts are in accordance with the law. Consulting with legal or labor experts in the Philippines can provide additional guidance on specific employment contracts and compliance with local regulations. Let's discuss the scope of the employment contract. The scope of an employment contract refers to the range and extent of its coverage and provisions. Employment contracts are legal agreements between an employer and an employee that outline the terms and conditions of the employment relationship. The scope of an employment contract typically includes various elements, such as 1. Job duties and responsibilities. The contract specifies the duties and responsibilities expected of the employee. This section outlines the tasks, projects, and roles the employee is required to fulfill. 2. Work hours and schedule. Employment contracts often define the standard working hours, days of the week, and any specific work schedule the employee is expected to adhere to. 3. Compensation and benefits. The contract outlines the agreed-upon salary or wage, payment frequency, and any additional benefits such as health insurance, retirement plans, bonuses, or other perks. 4. Termination terms. This section outlines the conditions under which the employment relationship can be terminated, including notice periods, severance pay, and reasons for termination. 5. Non-disclosure and confidentiality. Employment contracts may include clauses that require employees to keep certain information confidential and not disclose it to third parties. 6. Non-compete and non-solicitation. Some contracts include clauses that restrict employees from engaging in similar work for a competitor or soliciting clients or employees from the current employer for a certain period after leaving the company. 7. Intellectual property. If the nature of the work involves the creation of intellectual property, the contract may address the ownership and rights associated with any intellectual property developed during employment. 8. Governing law. The contract may specify the jurisdiction whose laws will govern the agreement in case of any legal disputes. 9. Dispute resolution. Some contracts include provisions for resolving disputes through methods such as arbitration or mediation rather than litigation. The scope of an employment contract can vary depending on the nature of the job, industry practices, and legal requirements in the relevant jurisdiction. It's essential for both employers and employees to carefully review and understand the terms of the contract before entering into the employment relationship. If there are any uncertainties or concerns, seeking legal advice is advisable. Is it mandatory to have an employment contract? In many jurisdictions, employment contracts are not always required by law for every type of employment relationship. However, having a written employment contract is highly recommended for both employers and employees as it helps to clarify the terms and conditions of the working relationship. While oral agreements and implied contracts can be legally binding, a written employment contract provides a clear and documented record of the agreed-upon terms, reducing the risk of misunderstandings or disputes.
Thank you so much for taking the time to visit and engage with my channel. Your support means a lot, and I truly appreciate your interest. Stay tuned for more exciting content, and I look forward to having you as part of our community. If you have any suggestions or topics you'd like to see covered, feel free to share. Thanks again for being a valued viewer.